Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, Instagram. Volume's on. I think we're good to go. Good morning, everybody. September 4th, 2024. I am traveling today. I'm in a hotel room. No matter what I do, I cannot get good lighting for you in this dark, dingy room. I know you're all saying, close the curtains, don't have backlights. I'm telling you, it's pitch black in here, and the camera on the iPad was not working. So anyways, there we go. Hey, Osama on Instagram. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, everybody who has joined us on the other platforms. I can't see specifically who you are, but thank you. Welcome to Mornings with Scott, the best damn business show for medium and small businesses on the entire planet. I was just looking as I was logging on here. Markets are a little bit up today. They started way low, including in the futures, but the S&P is actually in the green right now. And Bank of Canada this morning dropped their rates 25 beeps, 25 basis points. For those that aren't up to speed on that, a basis point is 0.01%. So if you drop it from 4.5% to 4.25%, which is what they did, it means you dropped it 25 basis points. Or if you want to be one of the cool kids, you could just say 25 beeps on that. What is that a sign of? It's a sign that they think inflation is more or less under control, and it's moving in the right direction. And why would that be? Well, because the economy sucks. That's what does that. And so more evidence that we're in a recession, whether they tell you that or not. And that's okay. That's okay, because we need to get inflation under control in both countries. I once had a coaching client, an entrepreneur, this is a few years ago, that left his job, started up as an entrepreneur, and he created a world-beating designed product, a very cool product, world-beating design product, created it from scratch. The guy was just an artist, is still an artist, but he couldn't sell it. Couldn't sell this thing at all, and he wouldn't sell it. He did not want to get out in the market and sell. He didn't want to interact with people. He wanted to just stay behind his front-facing technology that he built, and you could go on there and order a custom designed product from the site, and he would go away to his workshop and build this custom design product that was world beating, and he would ship it to you, and he never had to talk to you. There was no like human interaction going on there. I've actually seen this a bunch of times. And so there was no shopping experience, buying experience, or energy for the purchaser. And well, of course, as you might imagine, that business failed. I had a call yesterday, I won't tell you who, for privacy, and it wasn't a formal coaching session. It was just a chit chat from someone that I know, who's an entrepreneur, and it was an interesting conversation about business, opportunities, challenge, and it gave me an opportunity to think and consider an interesting topic that I like, which is luck and opportunity in business, in life. And, there's quotes from various writers whose names I don't know. I should have looked up that quote for you. But that goes to the effect that if you want some luck, you have to go where the energy is. To have better luck, go where the energy is. By the way, this Hilton that I'm staying in, I was up at 4:30 this morning and wanted my coffee, and instead of having a coffee machine, they give you instant coffee. Did you know that was still a thing? I thought that was from the 70s. I thought that was from when I was a kid. Instant coffee seems to be the new trend here at the Hilton. So I had to go out and grab myself an Americano. So if you're drinking coffee, cheers. This fellow's trying to build a business, but for family reasons, he's located himself in a remote community. So he's in the middle of nowhere, and he's trying to build a business which requires his manual servicing of those clients and being on site at the business. And to be honest with you, I've done the same thing. Many of you that follow me know that I moved from a large city environment out into the middle of nowhere. And so I understand his issue. Big time, I understand his issue. And he's finding it very hard to build his business. And frankly, it doesn't sound like it's working very well for him at all. You know, the inverse of going where the energy is to find luck is that isolating yourself is a recipe to having no luck at all. The business, the opportunities are not going to come find you if you're sitting in the middle of nowhere, not out hanging out with the energy. So we had that discussion yesterday. Hello, Ergmar007 on Instagram. Thank you for joining us. If you're trying to build something or start a career and you're in a remote small town, you have two choices. And I know this from experience. You need to move to a better market. That's number one, if you want good luck, or travel a lot. Just travel to those other markets, which is what I do, by the way. I have a internal rule for myself. It's not anything that I've promised my family explicitly, but I promise myself that I will be home 50% of the time. But that means I need to be gone a significant amount of time, because I need to go where the energy is. And you're saying to me, some of you are going to say to me, oh, Scott, come on. I can do it virtually. I can build my business virtually. You say all the technology and Zoom calls and everything else today. I can network. I can sell. I can create opportunity. I can find luck on the internet from my basement. Well, no, you can't. Not this virtual. You know, I'm not saying that all this virtual work is useless. Look at me. I'm doing a live stream every single morning. It's not useless. It's really, really important. But if that's all you're doing, you're going to lose. We do business and we do business with the people that we have a connection with. This is not, it is a connection, but it's not the strongest connection. You're going to lose to the person that shows up, that just shows up and builds a one-on-one human connection. The virtual solution is going to lose 100% of the time. That is a fact. So you need to figure that out. If you hide behind your technology, if you're Gen Z young professional who grew up thinking that everything is just digital and you don't need to leave your apartment and go hang out with real human beings, you are wrong, which leads me to part B of this same conversation. Yesterday, I reviewed an article from the Wall Street Journal about Gen Z and the workforce and the difficulties they are having just learning how to behave in person as part of a team. You know, some of it was funny that boomers were trying to teach these Gen Z how not to be rude, that in real life you just don't, you don't act like an online troll on Twitter or X. They're trying to teach them to shut up and listen, have a little bit of respect, and just try to learn something. Cut down on the number of PowerPoint slides. There was an example of someone giving a presentation with 40 slides, and they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. And so I suggested that, this really isn't Gen Z's fault. That part of the problem is they grew up with their faces in their phones instead of playing with their friends, instead of learning how to interact with other humans. That's part of the learning experience of being a human. And the less we do that as children, the worse off we are. Well, that's not their fault. They started their careers with remote work. A lot of them started during COVID. They didn't get to benefit from peer learning. Like when I started my career at the accounting firm, international accounting firm, way back when, and particularly when I went into the corporate finance, investment banking, business valuation practice, I think of myself as a relatively bright guy. Well, I sat on a floor with 40 other people exactly the same as me, similar backgrounds. I mean, there was a lot of diversity, but exactly the same goals and sort of career path as me. And I felt like I was exactly average in terms of intelligence and abilities and execution. And that's how I felt. That wasn't true, by the way. I think I had pretty good reviews, but I felt exactly average. And most of the learning is not, from your managers and from your bosses or from manuals. Most of the learning is from your peers working with each other to figure shit out. And if you're sitting at home, you don't get that. You just don't get that. Okay. And that's not Gen Z's fault. at all. And these Gen Zs are also overprotected, overparented as children. They haven't learned to be resilient. They haven't learned to face adversity. We talked about all that yesterday, but that is also not their fault. None of this, in my view, is their fault. It's the parenting, it's the schooling system, it's circumstances to some degree. And I think all that Gen Z really needs is a chance. They need mentorship and they need a chance. And I think this generation's going to be fine. Olga, thank you for joining us. So that's what we covered yesterday. But I would say that you have to, if you are Gen Z, you have to accept that chance. You have to accept that opportunity. You have to go where the energy is because of the influence they have lived through. Gen Z often, because of the influences that they've lived through. Gen Z is often looking for the safety, the comfort. They just want virtual work. They don't want to have to go out into the world. And if you are isolating yourself, you're going to be in trouble. If you want to win, you have to show up in person. If you want luck in your business, go where the energy is. You need to be where people are and where the business is. Speaking of jobs, virtual jobs, Wall Street Journal reports that small businesses are job creators, but new businesses are not creating as many of them. The average number of people employed by the youngest businesses fell sharply during the pandemic, accelerating a decade-long slide. Basically, what they're saying is that over time, new businesses are hiring less and less people. Well, I think that's obvious. I don't even think you need an article about that. But the rise of these smaller ventures is one of the first signs of how the pandemic-inspired businesses have reshaped the economy. Businesses launched between March 20 and 21 had on average 4.6 employees. Back in the day, it used to be 5.8 employees. It reflects fundamental changes. The rise of remote work is why I started this article. The expansion of the gig economy, proliferation of software tools, all make it easier for entrepreneurs to operate with a leaner staff. The emergence of the pint-sized startup. I like this term. Pint-sized startup is consistent across most industries and geographies. Of course it is, because it's all about the technology. Let's cut to the point here. So if the trend is to pint-sized startups with fewer and fewer people, which I think is not a societal shift, but rather a technology shift, that's what's going on in the world. And if you are one of these people, if you are an entrepreneur and you have launched one of these pint-sized businesses, started a new business with less people, no people, you're a solopreneur, and you're on this bandwagon because you're making use of Zooms and live streaming and social media branding and marketing and sales and all that sort of stuff. Well, what are you doing? You are isolating yourself from the rest of the world. Don't forget to get out where the energy is, and you will find better luck in your business. Sell, network, sell, interact, human to human. I'm not saying give up on the digital, but you need to go where the energy is. Olga, I'm going to talk about gold, and you know way more about gold than me. So if you want to join and jump on this call, just let me know, and I will get you an invite. Goldman Sachs says to buy gold. Investors should go for gold as the precious metal stellar run isn't over. Goldman Sachs analysts said in a research note on yesterday. Gold hovered at $2,515 per ounce. The precious metal is off its all-time high, touched last month, but high that it touched last month, but it's still up nearly 22% year to date, making it the world's second best performing asset behind crypto. That's right. You know, what's interesting is they're pitching gold as a hedge to political turmoil. In fact, I'm going to read that in a second. And some people think, well, crypto does the same thing. But if you look at crypto, maybe people know more about this than I do, but it seems to me when you look at crypto, it's exactly correlated to the markets. It's not the opposite of the markets. It's not counter to the market ups and down. It's correlated. It's like dead on. You can just follow it with the indexes. Whereas gold, so that's not a hedge. Whereas gold is intended to be a hedge. Anyways, our preferred near-term long, according to Goldman Sachs, is gold. It remains our preferred hedge against political and financial risks, which added support from imminent Fed rate cuts and the ongoing central bank buying of the gold. The firm maintains a 2025 target of $2,700 per ounce and issued a long gold recommendation. Purchases by central banks hit a record in 2024, and it's been one of the biggest drivers of the precious metals rise this year. Bank of America is also pitching it. It says that gold has now surpassed the euro to become the world's largest reserve asset, second only to the US dollar. It quotes or cites geopolitical risks, the various wars going on under the Harris administration, Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Hamas, so on and so forth. So we're seeing gold being used as an uncertainty hedge, just as I said. So here's what I think. If you're an investor, does anyone else think? I'm not an expert on this. I would like to invite somebody on to have this conversation. And surely I know lots of gold people, but is gold the most fascinating case of human mass psychosis ever? Like ever? Mass psychosis? The idea that this golden metal, this shiny golden metal, should be what we chose as an ideal store of value around the world, not in some isolated pocket, but around the world. We're like, ooh, gold. Let's use that as our store of value. I don't know. I just find that weird. A weird mass psychosis. You can't pay your taxes with gold. Like, there's not a lot of utility beyond jewelry, as far as I know. It's reported. Even when you're investing in gold, did you know you're not really buying gold? Do you know there's really not a lot of gold backed up to what you are buying? The odds are you aren't trading gold at all. You're trading some derivative, a synthetic security, some made up piece of paper that's loosely tied to the value or directly tied to the value of gold, but it's not gold. It's a piece of paper that trades tied to the value of gold. It's reported that the volume of synthetic or paper gold trading far exceeds physical gold on the London Bullion Market, or the LBMA, London Bullion Market Association, reports that the daily volume of paper gold trading is about 3,248 metric tons. That results in a paper to physical gold trading ratio of 309 to 1. So the actual production of daily gold, including production and recycling, is 10.5 metric tons, but you trade 3,200 metric tons per day. So it's saying that there's a 309 to 1 ratio of synthetic trading to actual gold, which is kind of interesting. I think that's a flawed stat because it doesn't deal with velocity, but you get the point. You're not really buying gold, you're buying some piece of paper. You know, a long time ago, I was sitting in a luncheon, maybe 2010, somewhere around there, with a bunch of members of the World Gold Council. Eric Sprott, for sure, of Sprott Securities, Ian Telfer, which is the reason I was there, who at the time was chairman of Gold Corp. Don't hold me to the date, but Ian was definitely chairman of Gold Corp. And one of them was explaining how little gold there actually is in the world. It's shocking how little gold there is in the world. Basically, they were saying if you took all the gold and you put it in one room, which, by the way, the World Gold Council does that as much as possible, it'd be a really small room, a very little building. I was thinking about that as I was driving here to Calgary last night, which is a big drive. And so while I was driving, I was doing some AI research on my phone. And what I learned is that as of early 2023, approximately 212,000 metric tons of gold have been mined throughout history. So that's all the gold that's been extracted and is available in the forms of, in some form, which would include jewelry, bars, banks, because gold is virtually indestructible. My system just flashed here, but I think we're still streaming okay. And so there are 212,000 tons of gold in the world. And then I asked it, I said, hey, AI, what if all that was in, bars and it was stored in one building? How big of a building would that need to be, just to try to give us a visual in our heads of how much gold there is in the world? What do you think? Well, the conclusion was, if all the world's mined gold throughout history ever was stored in a standard gold bar with an 8-foot ceiling height, in a building with an 8-foot ceiling height, it would require approximately 55,000 square feet of floor space. That's it. Just a mid-sized little industrial building with an 8-foot ceiling not even an elevated ceiling, would store all of the gold in the world. There's very little gold. I don't know what to do with that information. That always blew me away. It blew me away when I heard it from the Gold Council. It blows me away now. What I know for sure is that you're not really trading gold, you're trading a piece of paper that's tied to the value of gold. And I know you're going to argue, well, the value of the paper drives up the value of the gold. It's all sort of the same thing. I don't know. It just seems like fluff to me. It's always seemed like fluff to me. I'm prepared to be entirely wrong. I'm prepared to be educated. We should get a gold expert on the live stream in the future to explain this to us. But I would just say that for all you gold people saying that crypto people have no substance, it seems a little pot kettle to me. Do you see that? I don't know. Seems a little pot kettle to me. Yesterday, I missed a Globe and Mail article. I didn't miss the article. We ran out of time. I said I'd revisit it today. In recent year, Globe and Mail, by the way, for our U.S. friends, which is the bulk of our audience, Globe and Mail, think of that as the Canadian Wall Street Journal. In recent year, Canada's status as a competitive destination for business investment has been increasingly questioned. I need to tell you that living here, I questioned that long before the most recent years, but business spending has stagnated. Capital flight has reached record levels, falling per capita incomes. There sure is in this country and in the US for similar reasons. Canada once had a sharply lower effective tax on investment compared to other OECD countries. That's the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. And most importantly, compared to the US as a largest trading partner. Recent trends indicate our competitive edge has virtually, our being Canadian, virtually disappeared. So when in Trump's first presidency, he's only had one. In Trump's presidency, he reduced federal corporate taxes by 14%, and that just wiped out the Canadian corporate tax advantage that we used to have over the U.S., which is by far the most important thing. So that advantage is gone, and there's another measure of tax competitive called the marginal effective tax rate. And what that does is it takes into account really a more fulsome tax burden, taxes on new investment, statutory rates, but also deductions, credits, and other taxes such as sales tax, transfer taxes, and the influence of depreciation rates. And even on that metric, Canada has fallen to 24th on 38 major industrial countries, and the US is 22nd, so a little bit better than Canada. But even so, the US is 22 out of 38 industrial countries, according to US-based research think tank called the Tax Foundation. So, and there's other taxes in Canada that don't fall into part of this analysis. Carbon tax is a big deal here now. $80 per ton impacts competitive and higher energy prices. I was golfing the other day, a couple of days ago, maybe Monday. Yeah, I was golfing Monday, and I went for a drink at the bar after, and I sat, I was solo, so I paired up with a couple. And the guy I was golfing with is an engineer, works at an oil and gas company in Alberta. I didn't get into the specifics. I don't know how big they are, but their carbon tax is a massive issue, not just because they don't know the number. And by the way, I thought carbon tax was only a sales tax, like it was a retail. When I buy gas, I'm paying a carbon tax, or energy for my house or whatever. But nope, the producers pay it as well. And the problem is they don't know how much to pay. So his exact example was they thought they were going to have $1.5 million year-end tax bill, $1.5 million, and it turned out to be double that, $3 million. They have no idea why. And what they're doing about it is they're going to hire a department of 2 to 3 people to do nothing but full-time try to figure out their carbon taxes on an ongoing basis. Just think about the regulatory burden and stupidity of that. To which I said, well, the entire point of carbon taxes is to put you out of business. He said, I know, they're doing a good job. They're just doing it slowly. And that's what it sounds like. So there's also new taxes on financial institutions. Apparently, I never heard of this. We agreed to a 15% global minimum tax to align Canada with international tax reform efforts. So thank you, Justin Trudeau, for that. Anyways, My thoughts. In the 1990s, there was a huge wave of tax avoidance, not evasion, legal structuring products to minimize your taxes. It was a huge product area in the 90s and early 2000s, and both in Canada and the US. And that would include things like manufactured products. We call that in the financial industry, if you're coming up manufacturing something financial that then somebody can buy to accomplish a goal. So that would include like film deals and mining projects in Canada with flow through shares. These things were hot, and they may still continue on and be hot today, but they were really hot in the 90s. There was once a film deal that did nothing but defer your taxes a little bit for like 7 years. And if you did the discounted cash flow financial analysis on this tax deal, it was basically a locked in, guaranteed 2% return, guaranteed not to be better than that, guaranteed not to be worse than that. And that guaranteed return was below a treasury bill investment, a completely risk-free treasury bill investment. But we were so excited to not pay taxes in Canada back then that they sold billions and billions of dollars of this completely stupid product. Jeff Pocock, how you doing, my friend? Thanks for joining on Instagram. So, this was the era when they created these shady art donation tax deals. Have you ever seen those schemes? Everything was moving offshore. I did a ton of international work back then with companies that were looking to restructure out of a jurisdiction. And then there was a crackdown. It kind of started in the 90s, right? And some of this tax avoidance structured product was accused of being more tax evasion, and right, so it was just big gray area. Personally, I just got out of the whole business because I didn't like it. But also what happened is that the tax regimes changed. They just became more competitive, more reasonable. There was a greater sense that the money was being looked after and used properly. It wasn't just tax and grab and waste the funds on stupid projects. And so the whole attitude of everything changed, in my view. And now it feels like it's coming back. Capital is starting to revolt. That is the message from that Globe and Mail article. It is moving. It's moving because jurisdictions with Trudeau and Harris, Biden Harris. By the way, did you know that, for our U.S. audience, did you know that Justin Trudeau and Kamala Harris went to high school 4 miles away from each other, roughly at the same time? I think they're 7 years different in age. Just saying. Just saying. Uh, Anyways, the more we continue with tax abuse policies and wasted spending, the more capital is going to flee, and it has already started. It feels to me very much like it did in the 1990s. Keep an eye on this trend. Keep an eye on this trend. I think it's going to get worse. I think in Canada there'll be an election coming soon. It hasn't been announced, and our system up here is way different than your US system, where you have a date. This parliament up here could fall at any time, but I think it's coming soon. And the reason I know it's coming soon is because all over X, the People's Party of Canada, Maxime Bernier's party, which is a fringe kind of right wing. Most people would describe it as libertarian. Let's put it that way to be kind. They're all over X right now. They disappeared for a couple of years, and now I just see them nonstop in the feed, which means they are ramping up, which means they know something that we don't know. Anyways, I think the Conservatives are probably going to win in Canada, which means maybe we'll have some sanity on this side. But I also think Harris is going to win in the US, as I've told you many times during this live stream, and I don't see what's going to stop her from winning. And when she does, it's going to get much worse. So if you run a business, if you run a medium, small business, you should be tax planning. You should be thinking about this major expense, how you're going to handle it, how you're going to cash flow it, and how you can reduce that legally as much as you possibly can, because this is becoming more and more of a problem, just like it was back in the 90s. And I mean, let's face it, how many small businesses really spend any time doing any tax planning at all? Basically none. Those are all of my prepared remarks for today. I hope everybody's well. Do I have any comments I have to respond to? Don't see any. That's it. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Hopefully, I'll find a space that has better lighting than this dingy, dark hotel room. 830 Mountains. Talk to you tomorrow.